So I've been doing this concept-driven design thing for a while now, and you're probably wondering, what does that even mean, fam? Well, the short answer is, it's visuals driven by narrative. You compile a bunch of relevant words and vivid descriptors about the thing you're working on and allow that to form your ideas and your style. I first came across this approach to design from a book called Pseudo by William Stormdahl. In the Nordic countries where he's from, concept is ingrained in their design process, and William's book is a transcript of him challenging the idea of conceptual design, and the people he's talking to telling him that they can't really design any other way, it just wouldn't make any sense. As one designer says, it just gives you a few degrees to work in out of the 360 possible. And then another designer suggests, why would a client even buy design if it wasn't conceptual? Because looking good isn't enough. And I connected with that. It also reminded me of conceptual art like Duchamp's, where artists were more concerned with an idea or a message, and they let that dictate the form or the style the art would take. As someone at this time who was interested in finding my own creative voice rather than a personal style, I thought there was a lot of interesting possibilities here for graphic design. I felt it would, over time, allow for a lot of experimentation and variety in my work, and while making it very meaningful and personal to each client. But I'm not open to every style when it comes to logo design. I think you can be experimental and do some crazy rule breaking with identity design, but with logos specifically, they're meant to be timeless. That's what creates their value. They last a long time. So I have some style standards for logos that I utilize in this project. All that said, just remember, it's distilling words into visuals, which is also a bit like the old days of advertising where a copywriter and art director would work together on design. But now it's just me, because if there's one thing that defines the modern designer, it's one person doing the jobs of two. So it's one thing for me to tell you what concept-driven design is, but it's probably more helpful for me to show you. And in this example, I won't be the copywriter actually. I'm bringing in the big gun, Edgar Allan Poe. This is the case study for my concept-driven logo concept for the Baltimore Ravens. It's not an official logo I was hired for, so therefore conceptual work. Anyway, this was part of a challenge set up by Billy Bauman and the Super Design Bowl. The challenge being make a new logo for a sports team, my part being the Ravens. So first thing is, I just wanted to study the current logo and see what's good and what's flawed about it. As far as illustrated logos go, I don't mind this one. There's just a few details I think really need to change. I like the idea of combining a bee that represents the city and then a raven that represents the mascot. There are two groups of NFL logos that are relevant to this project, one being the floating head style and the other being the minimal iconic style. These two different styles are pretty much the extreme ends of NFL logo design. Either they're too illustrated or they're a bit boring. So I like the middle of the spectrum, and I'll just call that simple abstraction. Since I'm looking at keeping a bee and a raven, I think some combination of simple abstraction and a custom letter is a good place to aim for. I'm thinking something between the Texans and the Packers here. So here's where my copywriter comes in, because Ed's poem, The Raven, is the base inspiration for the team name in the first place. That's the logical place to start. And of course that brought me to The Simpsons. This is the best way to experience the poem. And there are a few lines that stand out to me as fuel for ideas. Remember, concept-driven design is visual narrative. You start with the words first. In this case, it's not brand descriptors or company values or anything like that. It's an actual vivid story. I really like these two lines. So, still is sitting and shadow on the floor. It's really vivid. And so much that it actually took my mind to a different place, to the 1989 Batman movie. The feel, the cinematography, the overall all tone of this movie, it felt right for a new Ravens brand. Now, with the poem and Batman in mind, I had this mental image of purple light against black, the night that's going to cast a shadow or form a silhouette. So bring in a raven, perched, not flying, not being aggressive, just staying true to how the poem describes it. Then there's going to be some sort of bee worked into this, and there you go, that's the logo. It's got all the pieces, the narrative, the style. I even shaped the bee by utilizing a football shape. It's not unlike the Packers logo, and out of all that came this unintentional R, which is just a bonus. I probably wouldn't even mention it if I was actually pitching this to someone, but it's kind of there. Then it's always important to check your concepts against competitors and opponents, especially divisional rivals, and you might say, isn't this a little too close to the Bengals, who also have a bee as their primary logo? And yeah, I think so. But in the Brandon Moore NFL universe, they use the tiger head logo as their primary anyway, so it's cool. And like Forrest Gump, since I ran this far, I figured I might as well just keep going, so I worked up some uniform designs. Similar process of identifying what I like and don't like about the current design. With a modernist kind of logo, it doesn't make sense to keep this 90s design. So I thought, let's toughen this up and let's do something classic and something bold. Let's have a focal point in the uniform that isn't this big honking pant stripe. I want people's eyes to either be drawn to the helmet or to the jersey. And when I think of tough Ravens, I think of these dudes. Like, what would look good on them? And what would represent their personality, their play style. And we can draw a parallel to Batman again with the all-black uniform. Starting at the helmet, I was keeping in mind the lines I liked from the poem referring to light and shadow, something being hidden or revealed, and I guess bird feathers have a sort of color-changing sheen to them, like purple and black seems to work for a raven, so hence the team colors. But then taken to the extreme, I thought about color-changing paint, and specifically TVRs that had some of the wildest chameleon-type paint I thought could be really nice on a helmet if that were possible. So this is very hard to replicate in a 2D image, but I tried. I thought if the helmet is changing from purple to black, depending on how the light hits it, what angle you're looking at it from, we could knock out the center of the logo and let the purple reveal the raven. And it's okay if you don't always see the logo. It's more about the colors and this crazy paint on the helmet. But we could put a constant identifier on it with the gold and white stripe that pulls from shapes in the Maryland flag. For the numbers, I felt they had to be one color, old school football block, tough, timeless, no nonsense. And this will allow the helmet and the rest of the jersey to shine too. So I took more shapes from the Maryland flag and put it on the shoulders of the jersey. I actually like a solid non-white football pant, but repeating the helmet stripe on the pants makes a nice rhythm, and I really feel teams are missing a great opportunity with the socks. I love stripes on socks, but you don't have to just do that or a solid color. I think a purple to black gradient dye would work well here. It repeats what's happening on the helmet and blends the sock into the pants, which is a different take on that combination. It's not that hard edge that we're used to seeing. And like Forrest Gump, since I came this far, I figured I might as well just keep going and thought about how this might apply to different brand touch points, bringing copywriter Eddie back in here. I pulled this part of the poem to direct some key art, especially liked this fantastic terrorist part. So to capture that and the overall art direction I envisioned, it only takes two examples. I wanted to lean into horror movie vibes a little bit, something not too sporty and stereotypical, and then combine that with the simplicity of Apple's ads, since I think that's kind of where the logo lives in the sports sphere. The old iPod pieces came to mind, and this purple one was that's the same visual idea as the logo, so I felt like this set the tone well. And you don't always have to do a deep dive into these things. If I can make a point with 2 images, that's a win. The first pieces are just presentations for what people are here for, the helmet and the logo. I could see this being part of a real-world brand reveal. Then 2 more examples that I think are not intended for anything specific, but just starting to mess with photography style, type, layout, and once again leaning into the copywriting, using lines from the poem to form an idea and composition. And that's really concept-driven design in action again. We have the feeling we want to set, the point we want to get across. You have the right words. We've got an art direction idea, so things like this start to design themselves and become meaningful and visceral key art pieces. Ideally, you could do a bunch of different versions of these 2 examples. It's really about finding that right photo. I imagine a crowd shot or a victory celebration might work better than this, but it's all meant to be a quick example. One of the best things a designer can do to sell the logo is apparel mock-ups. It helps bring it all to life, and people can see how it might work in the real world. A business card and a hat mock-up, they always bang. The hardest part of design, letting people into your head and taking them through your thought process, showing every reason why your idea is a great solution. Because looking good is not enough. It's too subjective. Concept-driven design isn't the only way to do it, but it works for me.